Stay calm. I'm buckling you in.
What's happening?
Get down!
I'm scared!
The glass shattered before Min-jae could react. One moment he was buckling Lena's seatbelt outside the elementary school, and the next, a rock crashed through his rear windshield, spraying fragments across the leather seats. Lena screamed. Parents yanked their children backward. Someone yelled something about money and lies and privilege. Min-jae threw himself over his daughter, heart hammering, as another parent's voice cut through the chaos. "Get your scandal away from our kids!" This wasn't supposed to happen. Acknowledging Lena was supposed to fix things. He scooped her into his arms and ran toward the school entrance, ignoring the phones pointed at them, the whispers that followed like smoke. Lena buried her face in his shoulder, trembling. She was 5 years old. She didn't understand why strangers hated her father, why her mother's face kept appearing on screens with words like opportunist and gold digger beneath it. Inside the principal's office, Min-jae made the call he'd been avoiding for 3 days. "Diane, we need to talk. Now." 20 minutes later, she arrived with flour still dusting her jeans. Diane Han looked nothing like the polished executive she'd been 7 years ago. Her bakery apron hung from her messenger bag, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. But her eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes that had first captivated him at a tech conference in Singapore, burned with the same fierce protectiveness he remembered. "Is she hurt?" Diane demanded, rushing past him toward Lena. Physically, no. Min-jae watched his daughter melt into her mother's embrace, with an ease she'd never shown him. "But this is getting worse. The media attention, the online harassment. They're saying things about you, about us, about how this all happened." Diane's jaw tightened. "I warned you what would happen if you went public." I had to acknowledge her. She's my daughter. She was safe when nobody knew that. Diane stroked Lena's hair, whispering soothing, words in Korean mixed with English. She was just mine. Anonymous. Protected. The principal knocked softly before entering, her expression grave. "Mr. Park, I'm afraid we need to discuss Lena's enrollment. Several parents have expressed concerns about the media presence. Yesterday, a photographer tried to enter the playground. We simply don't have the security infrastructure to—" "Are you expelling my daughter for being photographed?" Min-jae's voice dropped to something dangerous. "We're suggesting that perhaps a different educational environment, one more accustomed to high-profile families, might be more appropriate." Diane stood slowly, still holding Lena. "You mean you're caving to racist parents who can't handle seeing a biracial child in their precious school?" The principal flinched. "Mrs. Han, that's not—" "It's Ms. Han, and yes, it is." Diane turned to Min-jae. "Get your lawyers to handle this. I'm taking Lena home." He watched them leave, Diane's protective arm wrapped around their daughter, and felt something crack inside his chest. This was supposed to be his redemption. 4 weeks ago, standing before cameras in his Seoul penthouse, he'd announced the truth. Yes, he had a daughter. Yes, he'd failed her and her mother. Yes, he was committed to being better, to being present, to making amends for his absence. The public reaction had been overwhelming. His approval ratings soared. Think pieces praised his vulnerability, his honesty, his modern approach to fatherhood. Brand partnerships rolled in. His company's stock jumped 12%. But nobody asked Diane if she wanted to be part of his redemption arc. Now her face was plastered across tabloid sites with speculation about her motives, her past, her character. Forums dissected her appearance, her choices, her audacity to have a child with one of Asia's richest men and never tell him. The racism was relentless, casual, vicious. Comments about those women who trap successful men. Questions about her immigration status, despite her being a naturalized citizen for 15 years. And worse, something else was beginning to surface. Old accusations, whispered corporate scandals, A name that kept appearing in the digital cesspool: Project Silkworm. Min-jae had no idea what it meant, but his head of security had flagged it that morning with a single word: urgent. His phone buzzed. His mother. Min-jae, we need to discuss the situation with this woman. Her name is Diane, Mother, and that situation is your granddaughter. Don't be naive. Chairman Park Ji-won's voice could cut through steel. The board is concerned. These allegations about corporate espionage, about classified technology transfers. If there's any truth to them, any connection to our company, you need to distance yourself immediately. There's no truth to them. It's online garbage designed to discredit her. Then why did 3 of our international investors suddenly request emergency meetings? Why is the American consulate asking questions about our security protocols from 2017? Something is happening, and that woman is at the center of it. That woman had raised his daughter alone, while he'd been building empires, and dating actresses, and pretending his night in Singapore had never happened. I'll handle it, Min-jae said, and hung up. But he had no idea how. The bakery was closed when he arrived that evening. Diane's small storefront in Itaewon, wedged between a vintage bookshop and a record store, looked dark and abandoned. Min-jae's driver hesitated. Sir, perhaps we should wait here. He knocked on the glass door. Movement inside, then Diane's silhouette appeared. She didn't unlock the door immediately, just studied him through the glass like he was a stranger. Maybe he was. When she finally let him in, the smell of bread and vanilla enveloped him. Familiar? Comforting. Wrong, given the circumstances. Lena's asleep upstairs, Diane said, locking the door behind him. You have 5 minutes. The board wants me to cut ties with you. Then do it. She moved behind the counter, putting distance between them. Go back to your glass towers and your perfect life. That's what you're good at. That's not fair, isn't it? Diane's laugh was bitter. You left me in Singapore without a word. I found out you were engaged 3 months later from a business magazine. I was pregnant and terrified and alone, and you were picking out wedding china. I didn't know, because I didn't tell you. I'm aware. She crossed her arms. But you also never looked, never wondered, never cared enough to check if that one night might have had consequences. He had no defense. She was right. The engagement had been arranged, politically strategic, emotionally empty. It had collapsed within a year, but by then, Diane had disappeared completely. He'd assumed she'd moved on, returned to America, forgotten him. I'm trying to do better now, Min-jae said quietly. I want to be in Lena's life. I want to support both of you. Your support is destroying us. Diane's voice cracked. Do you know what happened today? A journalist showed up at Lena's taekwondo class, offered her instructor money for information about our schedule, our habits, our relationships. Someone followed me to the grocery store and live-streamed it with commentary about what I was buying, how I was dressed, whether I looked like a woman who'd trap a billionaire. I'll hire security, better lawyers. You can't fix this with money. Then what do you want from me? Diane met his eyes, and for a moment he saw the woman he'd fallen for in Singapore. Brilliant, passionate, uncompromising. An engineer who'd challenged him intellectually, who'd made him laugh, who'd made him feel like something more than his family's legacy. I want you to understand something, she said slowly. This isn't just about embarrassment or inconvenience. If certain people start digging into my past, into why I really left my last job, into what I was working on before Lena was born, this stops being a scandal. And becomes what? Dangerous. The word hung between them like smoke. Diane, what are you talking about? She turned away, hands gripping the counter edge. In 2017, I was working for a humanitarian tech consortium. We were developing communication systems for refugee camps, disaster zones, areas where traditional infrastructure had collapsed. It was meaningful work, important work. I remember. You were passionate about it. What you don't remember, because I never told you, is that our technology was being quietly repurposed. Her voice dropped. Surveillance systems, data collection networks, sold to governments with questionable human rights records. When I discovered it, when I tried to report it, I was shut down, threatened, told I was mistaken, paranoid, ungrateful. Min-jae's stomach turned cold. What did you do? I documented everything, every contract, every meeting, every email that showed the technology transfer, and then I disappeared. She looked at him over her shoulder. 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, so I ran farther, changed my name legally, buried myself in a small business where nobody would think to look for a former tech engineer. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were part of it. The world tilted. What? Your company, Park Industries, provided the initial hardware platform. The contracts were signed before we met, but your technology formed the backbone of the surveillance system. If I'd come to you pregnant and terrified and told you what I knew, what would you have done? Believed me? Or protected your family's billion-dollar contracts? He wanted to say he would have believed her, would have protected her, would have done the right thing. But 7 years ago he'd been different, ambitious, ruthless, loyal to the Park legacy above all else. I would have investigated, he said finally. And by the time you finished investigating, I would have disappeared. Permanently. Diane's hands shook slightly. So I made a choice. I chose Lena. I chose anonymity. I chose survival. And now? Now your redemption tour has put a spotlight on me, and the people who wanted me silent 7 years ago are noticing. His phone buzzed. A message from his head of security. Need to speak immediately. Project Silkworm connected to current board members. This is bigger than we thought. Min-jae looked at Diane, really looked at her, and saw what he'd missed before. The exhaustion, the fear, the constant vigilance of someone who'd been running for years. Let me help you, he said. You can't help me by being here. You help me by giving me distance, by letting Lena and I disappear again, no. The word came out harder than he intended. I lost 6 years with my daughter because I was careless and selfish. I'm not losing more because I'm a coward. This isn't about courage, it's about survival. Then we survive together. Diane laughed, sharp and humorless. You have no idea what you're saying. Then tell me. Everything. Right now. She studied him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity against years of disappointment. Finally, she moved to the back office, returning with a small external hard drive. Everything I documented is here. Names, dates, contracts, recordings. Evidence that some of the most powerful tech companies in Asia knowingly sold surveillance technology to authoritarian regimes. Evidence that humanitarian aid was used as cover for intelligence gathering. She placed it on the counter between them. Evidence that your mother signed some of those contracts personally. The air left his lungs. My mother? Chairman Park Ji-won, signing on behalf of Park Industries in March 2017. Authorizing the sale of encrypted communication hardware to a shell company later connected to mass surveillance operations in 3 countries. Min-jae's mind raced. March 2017. He'd been in New York, launching their American subsidiary. His mother had been handling Asian operations, expanding into new markets, signing dozens of contracts monthly. She might not have known, he said weakly. She knew. Diane's voice was gentle but firm. There were 6 follow-up meetings, amendments to the contracts specifying the technology's capabilities, technical consultations about how to optimize data collection. She knew exactly what she was selling and who would use it. Then why did you never expose this? If you had all this evidence? Because exposing it would have started a war I couldn't win. I was a nobody, an engineer, a pregnant woman with no family, no connections, no protection. I would have been discredited, destroyed, possibly worse. She touched the hard drive. So I kept it as insurance. As long as I stayed invisible, as long as I didn't threaten anyone, the information stayed buried. But now I've made you visible. Now you've made me a target. His phone rang. His mother again. He declined the call. What do they want? Minjai asked. The people who threatened you before. What do they want now? To make sure I stay quiet. To ensure this evidence never surfaces. Diane's expression hardened. Your mother contacted me 3 days ago, offered me 50 million won to take Lena and leave Korea. When I refused, she suggested that custody battles can be very difficult for mothers with questionable backgrounds. Rage bloomed in Minjai's chest, hot and pure. She threatened to take Lena? She threatened to destroy my credibility so thoroughly that no court would grant me custody, and she has the resources to do it. Diane's voice cracked slightly. I've survived a lot, Minjai, but I can't survive losing my daughter. You won't. I promise you. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. He picked up the hard drive. I'm going to fix this. How? By confronting your mother? By exposing your own company? You'll lose everything. I already lost everything that mattered once. I'm not doing it again. Diane's eyes glistened. You don't understand what you're up against. These aren't just business deals. These are international intelligence contracts, government partnerships, billions in ongoing revenue. If you expose this, you won't just lose your company. You'll become a liability to very powerful people. Then I'll be a liability. Minjai moved toward the door, but I'll be one who protected his family. Minjai. He turned back. Do you trust me? It was the wrong question. Trust had to be earned, and he'd done nothing to earn hers. But she looked at him, really looked at him, searching for something. I trust that you love Lena, she said finally. I trust that you want to be better. But I don't trust that you understand how dark this gets. Then help me understand. She pulled out her phone, showing him a news article from that morning, a small story buried in the business section. Park Industries announces strategic partnership with Defense Ministry. Chairman Park calls it New Chapter in National Security. That partnership, Diane said quietly, uses the same surveillance architecture from 2017. They're not stopping. They're expanding. And if evidence surfaces that the technology was originally developed through fraud and illegal contracts, the entire defense deal collapses. Billions of dollars. National embarrassment. International investigations. So they'll do anything to keep you quiet. They'll do anything to make me disappear. The vandalism happened that night. Minjai was in his penthouse, surrounded by lawyers and security experts, when his phone exploded with notifications. Video of Diane's bakery, windows smashed, walls spray-painted with slurs in Korean and English. The interior destroyed, ovens damaged, equipment broken. He was in his car within seconds, driver speeding through Seoul's late-night streets. Diane stood outside the wreckage, phone pressed to her, ear, face illuminated by police lights. She was talking to someone calmly, methodically, like this was an inconvenience rather than a violation. But Minjai saw the tremor in her hands, the tightness around her eyes. Where's Lena? He demanded, running up to her. With my neighbor. Safe. Diane ended her call. They left a message. She showed him her phone. An anonymous text. Next time we won't stop at property. That's it, Minjai said. You're both staying with me. Security, lawyers, everything you need. Your penthouse is the first place they'll look. Then somewhere else. Somewhere safe. A police officer approached, asking questions. Diane answered patiently, giving details she'd clearly memorized, offering information she'd anticipated needing. She'd done this before, Minjai realized, or she'd prepared for it. When the officer left, Minjai touched her arm gently. Come with me. Please. She looked at the wreckage of her business, her safe place, her carefully constructed, anonymous life. Then she nodded. They picked up Lena, still drowsy and confused, and drove to a hotel Min Jae's security team had secured. A suite on the top floor, guards posted discreetly, everything arranged within an hour. Lena fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by confusion and fear. Diane sat beside her daughter's bed, stroking her hair, whispering promises in the dark. Min Jae watched from the doorway, his heart breaking and rebuilding simultaneously. When Diane finally emerged, she looked hollowed out. "I need to leave Korea," she said. "Take Lena somewhere quiet, somewhere nobody knows us. Start over again." "No. Min Jae, I won't let them chase you away. Not again." He pulled out his laptop. "I've been looking into Project Silkworm, into the contracts, the partnerships, everything." And you were right about all of it. My mother's signature is on 18 separate documents authorizing technology transfers. But there's more. He turned the screen toward her. The investors pushing the defense deal, 3 of them have direct ties to the shell companies that bought the surveillance technology in 2017. They're not just covering up old crimes. They're profiting from them actively. Diane sat down slowly. "So, what do you want to do?" "I want to release everything. The evidence you have, the new information I've found, all of it. Simultaneously. To international media, regulatory agencies, human rights organizations. Make it too big to bury, too public to silence. You'll destroy Park Industries. Park Industries is already rotten. I'm just admitting it. Your mother will never forgive you. I stopped caring about her forgiveness when she threatened my daughter." Diane searched his face. "You understand what this means? You'll lose your position, your wealth, your reputation. Everything you've built. Everything I've built was on a foundation of lies and blood money. I'd rather have nothing honest than everything corrupt. And Lena? When she grows up and learns her father destroyed his family's legacy, she'll learn her father chose truth over comfort, that he protected the people he loved instead of protecting his empire." Min Jae moved closer. "She'll learn that doing the right thing costs something, but it's worth the price." Tears spilled down Diane's cheeks. "I thought I'd have to run forever." "You don't. Not anymore." She nodded, making a decision that had been 7 years in the making. "Okay, let's do it." They worked through the night. Diane's evidence combined with Min Jae's access to internal documents created an airtight case. Surveillance contracts sold under the guise of humanitarian aid. Technology deliberately modified to enable mass data collection. Government partnerships built on falsified compliance reports. And at the center of it all, Chairman Park Ji-won's signatures, authorizing everything. Min Jae's hands shook as he compiled the final files. This wasn't just business. This was his mother. The woman who'd raised him with impossible standards and ruthless ambition. The woman who'd taught him that power mattered more than principles. "Second thoughts?" Diane asked gently. 1,000 of them. He looked at her. "But they all lead to the same conclusion." At 6 a.m., they released everything. Simultaneously to The Guardian, Reuters, Al Jazeera, Korean investigative journalists, the UN Human Rights Council, and 17 other international organizations. Comprehensive documentation, irrefutable evidence. A statement from Min Jae Park, CEO of Park Industries, acknowledging his company's role and resigning effective immediately. The world exploded within an hour. Headlines screamed across every platform. Breaking news alerts jolted millions awake. Park Industries' stock went into free fall, trading suspended within 40 minutes. Government officials scrambled, investors panicked, international outcry crescendoed, and Min Jae's phone rang with his mother's fury. "What have you done?" Her voice shook with rage. "What have you done to this family? What you should have done 7 years ago, told the truth. You naive fool. You've destroyed everything your grandfather built, everything I've protected, everything we've sacrificed for. You sacrificed other people's freedom for profit. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. They'll come for you. The people whose deals you've ruined, whose secrets you've exposed, they won't forgive this. I'm counting on it. Min-jae looked at Diane, who was monitoring news coverage on her laptop. Let them come. At least this time, everyone will be watching. His mother's laugh was sharp and broken. You think exposure protects you? You think sunshine is a disinfectant? You're a child playing in waters you don't understand. Then I'll learn to swim. She hung up. The next 72 hours were chaos. Emergency board meetings, shareholder lawsuits, government investigations launched in 4 countries. Min-jae gave a statement from the hotel, standing beside Diane, refusing to hide. I was complicit through ignorance and negligence, he said to the cameras. I benefited from systems built on exploitation. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm accepting responsibility and ensuring accountability. The backlash was immediate and vicious. Death threats, online mobs, accusations of betrayal, cowardice, Western influence. His former allies abandoned him. Business partners issued statements of shock and distance. But others came forward. Engineers who'd noticed irregularities, whistleblowers who'd been silenced, journalists who'd been investigating for years without enough evidence. The truth grew larger than any single person could contain. On the 4th day, arrest warrants were issued, not for Min-jae, but for Diane. Corporate espionage, theft of proprietary technology, conspiracy to damage national security interests. The prosecutor's statement was broadcast nationally. Ms. Han will be taken into custody pending investigation. It was a trap, a maneuver to silence the source of the evidence. If Diane was discredited as a criminal, her testimony became worthless. The whole case could unravel. Min-jae called every lawyer he could find. This is retaliation, political persecution. She's the victim here. The warrant is technically legal, his best attorney admitted. The charges are fabricated, but they'll take time to disprove. And in that time, they'll make her disappear. Diane was calm when he told her, terrifyingly calm. I knew this was a possibility, she said. It's why I never came forward before. We won't let them take you. You can't stop a warrant. Watch me, he called a press conference. Unscheduled, unauthorized, live-streamed from the hotel lobby, with Diane at his side, and Lena playing nearby, unaware of the cameras. The charges against Diane Han are retaliation for exposing the truth, Min-jae said, voice steady despite his racing heart. She's being prosecuted for the crime of documentation, for having evidence of corruption and refusing to destroy it. If she's arrested, it won't be justice. It will be silencing. Reporters shouted questions. Security tried to end the conference. But Min-jae kept talking, kept exposing, kept naming names and companies and government officials who had everything to lose if Diane testified freely. They want to make her a criminal to make themselves innocent. But the evidence doesn't lie. The contracts don't lie. The technology being used for surveillance in refugee camps right now doesn't lie. He looked directly into the main camera. If Diane Han goes to jail, you'll know exactly why, and you'll know exactly who benefits. The prosecutor's office issued a statement within an hour. The arrest warrant was being reviewed for procedural irregularities. Investigation ongoing. No immediate action planned. Wasn't a victory, it was a reprieve. That night, Min-jae found Diane on the hotel balcony, watching Seoul's lights spread like stars below. You should hate me, he said quietly. I brought this into your life. I made you visible when you'd spent years staying hidden. I don't hate you. She didn't look at him. I'm angry, terrified, exhausted. But I don't hate you. What do you feel? Relieved. The word surprised them both. I've been carrying this for 7 years, looking over my shoulder, waiting for the knock on the door. wondering if Lena would grow up thinking her mother was paranoid or crazy or running from something shameful. Her voice cracked. At least now the truth is out. Whatever happens next, at least she'll know why. Minjai stood beside her, close but not touching. What happens next is we win. You can't know that. No, but I can believe it. She finally looked at him, eyes reflecting the city lights. Why are you doing this? Really? You could have walked away. Let me disappear. Kept your empire intact. Because 6 years ago I let you walk away and convinced myself it was fine. That one night didn't matter. That consequences wouldn't find me. That I could just move forward and forget. He met her gaze. And then I saw Lena, and I realized I'd been living half a life, building monuments to my ego while my daughter grew up without me. I can't get those years back, but I can make sure the rest of her life isn't haunted by my cowardice. This isn't cowardice, it's the opposite. Finally. He smiled sadly. Turns out telling the truth is easier than I thought. It's living with the lies that's exhausting. Diane's hand found his, tentative, but real. Thank you. For destroying my company and making you a fugitive. For seeing me, for believing me, for choosing her. She squeezed his fingers. For being the father she deserves, even if it came 6 years late. They stood together, watching Soul breathe, knowing that tomorrow would bring more battles, more revelations, more consequences. But tonight, they were together. The investigation expanded like wildfire. International agencies got involved. Diplomatic tensions escalated. Park Industries Board voted to remove Minjai's mother as chairman, citing legal liability and reputational damage. She called Minjai once more, a week after the revelations. I hope you're proud of yourself, she said, voice empty of the rage from before. Just exhaustion now. You've destroyed a 50-year legacy in 8 days. I've exposed a 50-year crime. That's not the same thing. To you, perhaps. To me, to your grandfather's memory, to everyone who built this company with blood and sacrifice, it's identical. Grandfather would be ashamed of what you made his company become. Your grandfather made deals with warlords to keep factories running during the war. He bribed officials, crushed competitors, did whatever it took to survive and thrive. You think he built this empire with clean hands and noble intentions? His mother laughed bitterly. You're exactly like your father. Idealistic, naive, weak. My father left because he couldn't stomach what this family had become. Your father left because he was a coward, who valued his conscience over his family's survival. Then I'm exactly like him. Minjai's voice softened. I'm sorry, Mother. I'm sorry I'm not the son you wanted. But I won't apologize for being the father Lena needs. She was quiet for a long moment. That child has cost you everything. That child has given me everything that matters. You'll regret this. When the money's gone, when the name means nothing, when you're just another nobody struggling to survive, you'll remember what you threw away. I hope I do. I hope I remember every day what I was willing to sacrifice for truth. He paused. Goodbye, Mother. He ended the call before she could respond. 3 months later, Minjai stood in a small apartment in Vancouver, watching Lena chase seagulls on the beach below. The charges against Diane had been dropped after overwhelming international pressure. The surveillance contracts had been dissolved. 5 government officials had resigned. 2 companies had declared bankruptcy. Park Industries still existed, but barely. Restructured, renamed, stripped of everything corrupt. Minjai had no part in it anymore. He had almost nothing, really. A modest savings account, a rented apartment with second-hand furniture, a job teaching business ethics at a community college, which made him laugh every time he said it out loud. But he had mornings like this. Lena's laughter, Diane's hand in his as they watched their daughter discover tide pools, the absence of fear that had haunted them both for so long. "She wants to know if you'll come build sandcastles," Diane said, returning from the beach with wet feet and a genuine smile. "Only if you help. I'm terrible at sandcastles." "Good. So am I." They walked down together, leaving footprints in the sand that the tide would erase, starting over, building something new from nothing. Lena grabbed Minjai's hand, pulling him toward her masterpiece of shells and seaweed. "Daddy, look, I made us a house. It's beautiful, but the water will take it away. Then we'll build another one, and another one. As many as you want, forever." She beamed at him, gap-toothed and perfect and his. That evening, sitting on their small balcony while Lena slept inside, Minjae and Diane watched the sun set over the Pacific. "Do you regret it?" Diane asked quietly. "Not for a second." He pulled her closer. "Do you?" "I regret that it took this long, that we lost years, that Lena had to see scary things." She leaned into him. "But I don't regret the outcome. We're here. We're safe. The truth is out. And we're together. And we're together." It wasn't romantic, exactly. They were still rebuilding trust, still learning each other, still figuring out if what they'd shared 7 years ago could become something deeper, something lasting. But they had time now. Time without fear, without secrets, without the weight of empires and lies pressing down on them. Time to be a family. Minjai thought about his mother's prediction, that he'd regret his choices when the money was gone. She was wrong. He'd never felt richer than this moment, with his daughter safe and his conscience clear, and the woman who'd shown him what real courage looked like sitting beside him. He'd lost a company. She'd lost her silence. Together, they'd saved a child and exposed a truth that needed light. And somehow, impossibly, they'd found their way to this small balcony, this quiet evening, this new beginning. The world had tried to destroy them for speaking up. It had failed. They were still here, still fighting, still standing, still free. If this story moved you, if it made you think about truth and sacrifice and the courage it takes to do the right thing, even when it costs everything, please hit that subscribe button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me what you thought. These stories exist because of you, because you watch, because you engage, because you care about narratives that challenge us to be better. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.